Good day, students. Welcome to the Iol PowerPoint presentation for Introduction to Educational Research. I am your tutor for 2021. I'm Selma Kanjengo. I can be contacted at 081 47 44647. My email is snkalvepakanjengo@gmail.com. Welcome to the April and August 2021 exam-based presentation for the Introduction to Educational Research, IER 31. We wish you all the best in your studies. Be motivated and study hard for this course and achieve the qualification you want. Examination instructions. Questions should be answered on the question paper. The mark allocation is a guideline for the time needed to answer each question. Write neatly and legibly. Observe the thinking level of the verb in each question. No unauthorized material, notes, technical devices may be in your possession. Cheating in the examination will result in a failing grade. There are certain verbs that you ought to know and ought to understand so that when you are asked in the examination, you know exactly what you are expected to do. For instance, when you find a word that says define, what you are expected to do is to give the precise, brief meaning of something. When you are asked to compare, you indicate similarities and differences of phenomena. When you are asked to contrast, you show how things are different or opposite regarding a particular criteria. When you are asked to describe, you provide detailed features of an issue. When you are asked to discuss, you give a clear description and then argue about features by pointing out positive and negative features. Then you arrive or derive at a conclusion. When you are asked to explain, you describe something and indicate relationships between things. There are many other words like analyze, determine, distinguish, outline, summarize, and examine. So you need to go through these words carefully and have an understanding of what exactly is meant when you meet this word. What exactly is meant when you're asked to outline. What exactly is expected of you when you're asked to summarize, and so forth. Upon completion of Introduction to Educational Research, you are expected to know the following, or to be able to do the following. You should be able to explain basic research concepts and characteristics, discuss the characteristic of qualitative and quantitative research, explain the design and implementation of data gathering tools, explain techniques for data analysis, explain the components of a research proposal. This presentation is an exam guide for April and August 2021 examination only. So in a short while, we are going to provide you with the exam guide for November 2021. But in this stance, it's only April and August 2021 examination. Number one, you are expected to know the definition of the foreign concepts or words. These words appear in your study guide. So find the page in your study guide and try to understand these words and be able to define them. Words such as research, action research, research design, research hypothesis, qualitative research, data analysis, plagiarism, reliability, validity, surveys, epistemological dimension, research ethics, ethnography, methodology, empirical research, scientific knowledge, research proposal, quantitative research, mixed methods, theory, research paradigm, literature review, ontological dimension, model, mean, mode, median. So you should be able to define these concepts. Number 2, you should be able to explain Merton's dimension of research. There are 5 dimensions of research by Merton's. We have the sociological dimension, which is concerned with who does the research and with the context in which the research is conducted. The sociological dimension encompasses the social, economic, political, cultural, and linguistic factors. So it doesn't only limit the dimension to only the social aspects, it also looks at other aspects, economic, political, cultural, and linguistic factors. Then you also need to know the ontological dimension, which is the study of being or reality. The dimension is concerned with the reality that's being investigated. You should have an understanding of the theological dimension, which is concerned with purpose and aim. The research is intentional and goal-directed. There is an epistemological dimension, which is concerned with the nature of knowledge. It is reflected in the question of what is the nature of knowledge, and what is the relationship between the knower and the would-be known. And then the methodological dimension, which deals with the methods and techniques used. So it looks at research methodology, as for instance, qualitative or quantitative. Research methods, for instance, is it a survey, case study, is it a phenomenological study, and so forth. So those 5, you must know them and you should be able to explain them. Number 3, educational research paradigms, which underpin research according to Cohen and Manion. There are 3. We have the empirical paradigm. This approach assumes that knowledge is external to us. It exists outside ourselves. The researcher and the knowledge are separate. This paradigm mainly deals with facts and figures, therefore it's a quantitative approach to research. Then we have the interpretive, or what we call a constructivism paradigm. It deals with interpretation. So it operates more from a qualitative analysis of data. It also takes a sociological perspective. Then we have the action research paradigm, which tries to improve the practice. So it requires a practice. So the 3, you need to know them, and you should be able to explain them. Number 4, qualitative and quantitative research design. These 2 differ in so many ways. And as a researcher to be, an educational researcher to be, you need to be able to differentiate them depending on their different elaborations. For instance, you should be able to explain how the scientific methods for qualitative differ from the one for quantitative, how the view of human behavior is different, most common research objectives, the focus, interest, nature of observation, nature of reality, form of data, data analysis, results, and so forth. These 2 differs. For instance, their form of final report. We find that in qualitative, the final report is more narrative, while the quantitative final report will be statistical. So there is a page in your study guide where those 2 are written clearly. The differences are spelled out clearly. So please make use of the study guide and try to understand those differences. Number 5, common purpose of research is discussed by Maree 2001. Maree mentioned the 3 that we have: exploration, which aims to explore a topic or familiarize oneself with a topic. Why? It is so that the researcher can satisfy his or her curiosity, or to gain a better understanding of a specific topic, or to test the feasibility of a study, or to develop the methods for the study. The second purpose is description, whereby the researcher will describe a situation or an event. So the researcher will observe an event or a situation and then describe what she or he observed. An example of a description study would be a census, whereby the researchers will go out there in the field, then they will collect information on how many houses are in a specific town or in a specific village or in a specific settlement, how many people are there, what the race of the people that are there, the age group, the disability, and all that and all that. Then we have the explanation, whereby the researcher tried to explain things. So the explanatory studies attempt to answer the question of why. Let's say at a certain school, let's say it's a school A, it emerged that the rate of pregnancy is very high. As a researcher, you may decide to go there and try to find the reason why. Why is the rate of teenage pregnancy high at school A? So that type of study is an explanation, because you are trying to answer the question of why. Why are the teenage, or why are the children, or why the young girls are falling pregnant at that specific school? Number 6, there is steps in formulation of an educational research problem, as stipulated by Kumar and Maree. The first step is to identify a broad field or subject area of interest. So when you are planning or when you are thinking of an educational research problem, you need first to identify what will be my field. If I'm going to conduct a research, an educational research, what would be my field? Where do I start? One can say, well, I would want to do something on educational leadership. Then your broad field will be educational leadership. Then you dissect the broad area into sub-areas. What exactly that I will look at in educational leadership? You might decide that I will look at learner leadership. So that is a sub-area in the broader field of educational leadership. Then you have to formulate the objectives. What are the objectives for your research? Then you have to prepare a research design. How do I go about getting the information that I need? What type of study, what type of methods will I use? Then processing and analyzing data. How will I go about analyzing my data? Am I going to use, for instance, am I going to use questionnaires? If I'm going to use questionnaires, then how do I analyze my questionnaires? Then reporting the findings is step 6. So those 6 steps I must know, because if you are to conduct any research, that's where you will start. That's where you will start with your thinking, and that's where you will start with your drawing up of your research problem. Then literature review. There are functions of literature review that you ought to know. They are in your book. Literature review is one of those major components of educational research, because for any researcher to go out there in the field and conduct research, they need to have read broadly on the topic. So when you are reading broadly on the topic, you will come across literature that interests you, and that literature can become part of your literature review. So the functions are to discover what is known and what remains to be learned in the field. Many times a study can be identified and can be replicated. You find a study that you like and you can decide that I can replicate this specific study. The literature review also helps us to form our research questions. So when you go on reading, you find what others have read and how others have set their research questions. So it will give you an idea of how to set your own research questions. It also helps you to determine theory. So when you go through literature review, when you go through what others have written on the topic, you'll be able to identify that this specific study that you yourself are conducting can fit well with this theory and that theory is written or is used by this and that other author or other researcher. It also helps you to get ideas on how to design your study. Because it's giving you ideas. When you read it, you find what other researchers have used. For instance, what methodology have they used, what research design they have used, and so forth. So it gives you ideas of how to go about with yours. It also helps novice researchers to find out or to find difficulties experienced by other researchers. So you don't have to repeat the same mistakes and come across or face difficulties that other researchers have faced. So you have, when you go through, you'll be able to see that this other person have used this and it hasn't worked. Therefore, I cannot use it. I'll use this one because others have used it and it has worked. It can also help you to identify data collection, as I mentioned earlier, the data collection instruments that other researchers have used. Then data gathering methods for qualitative and quantitative research. The qualitative research mostly use documents, observation. They will go out there, then they'll have an instrument, an observation instrument that they will use. Then they will just go there, observe, and make notes on the instruments. They will conduct interviews with the participants. They also have focus group interviews. While the quantitative mostly use questionnaires, they use telephone surveys and face-to-face surveys. Number 9, steps to be considered when planning for data collection. So you have an idea of the research that you want to conduct. You have read the literature review. You have a very rich depth of the information that you need. Now you need to plan for your data collection. How are you going to get the data collection? There are 6 steps that you need to know. Number 1, you need to identify the data type. What type of data do you need? And the source. Where are you going to get this data? Step 2, you need to identify who will be involved. Who are the participants in your research? Is it children? If it's children, then you need to think of the fact that children cannot give consent. So you need to be able to you need to plan in such a way that you'll be able to get parents to give you consent for their children to participate. So you need to identify who will be the participants. Is it parents? Is it the students? Is it the community members? And so forth. Then you have to set a scheduled timing. The schedule of timing is very important, especially if your study involves the information that you want to get is seasonal information. Let's say, for instance, you want to get the results of 2021 grade 11. Then you have to set your timing in such a way that you should be able to get this information probably February 2022. Because if you set your timing in such a way that you go to the school now looking for such information, it will not be available. So you set a schedule that will fit in when is the information that you need available. Then you need to pilot test your data correction process. Usually when you have a questionnaire, when you set a questionnaire, you need first to pilot it. The reason of piloting is to ensure that the questionnaire is giving you the information, or your questions are giving you the information that you need. Because sometimes you find that your set questionnaire is not giving you the information that you need. It's not answering the answers that people are giving are not answering to your research questions. That means there's something wrong with your questions. You need to rephrase them and reset them so that they can answer the questions that you need. Then you have to implement your data correction. That's step 6 when you now go in the field and do the data correction. Number 10, Johnson and Christensen 2008 mentioned principles that are useful when evaluating a design questionnaire. Principle 1, make sure the questionnaire items match your research objectives. You might set a questionnaire, take it out there, have respondents respond to your questionnaire, and then when you go back, you realize that all the answers do not respond to your research objectives. So that means that the questionnaire was not matching with your research objectives. So your questionnaire should answer your research objectives. Principle number 2, understand your research participants. Principle number 3, use natural and familiar language. There is no use, or there is no need to use bombastic words that other people might not understand. Because if you do so, they will not be able to respond properly to your research questions. So make sure that you use natural and familiar language. Write items that are clear, precise, and relatively short. If you write a very long questionnaire, a number of people might not get time to complete it. Or they will try to write just so that they can give you back your questionnaire. So for you to get appropriate things, make sure that your items are clear, precise, and relatively short. Do not use leading or loaded questions. Avoid double barrel questions. Avoid double negatives. It's not good, isn't it? You are confusing the person. Determine whether an open-ended or closed-ended question is needed. Develop a questionnaire that is probably organized and easy for participants to use. Number 11, different scales for use in questionnaires according to Maree. We usually talk about the 4 scales of measurement. We have the nominal scale of measurement, we have the ordinal scale of measurement, we have the interval scale of measurement, and we have the ratio scale of measurement. Nominal comes from a Latin nomen, which means name. Therefore, the data there is measured by assigning names. A nominal scale consists of 2 or more classes or categories. A person gender is an example of a nominal scale where we say male or female. Colors, where we say red or yellow, are examples of nominal scales. The ordinal scales of measurement compare various pieces of data in terms of one being greater or higher than another. An example there will be small, medium, or large. Questions like where you agree or disagree are also an example of ordinal scale of measurement. Then we have the interval scale of measurement, which has equal units of measurements, and it also has a 0 point. For instance, we have the essential scale, where we say the temperature today is 39, the temperature today is 15, the temperature today is 0, temperature today is minus 00. It's an example of a Celsius scale. Then we have a ratio scale of measurement, which has a true 0. An example of it will probably be a scale where when you stand on it, the scale will move from 0 to 79 if you weigh 79, or it will move from 0 to 30 if you weigh 30. Number 12 is data analysis. Data analysis is a process under which a researcher begins with a large body of information. It must sort and categorize it and gradually boils it down to a small set of abstract underlying themes. So when you are analyzing your data, you will have 100, let's say you have 100 questionnaire. So you are beginning with a large body of information because you have 100 questionnaires. Now, the 100 questionnaires, you need now to group them in such a way that those that have same answers, or the way the respondents are answering with the same or similar views, then you sort them in a certain group. So you are categorizing them until from 100 questionnaires, you might find that you only maybe have 10 themes, depending on the groups. So if you have 10 here that are talking about this, 10 that are talking about the other, 15 that are talking about that, then you are grouping them in such a way that you are creating themes for your analysis. Use of computers in analyzing qualitative data. Nowadays, people use computers. Researchers use computer-based directories and files, and added the use of word processors to write and annotate text. Computer-assisted qualitative data analysis programs are used to code and retrieve text. Then we have other popular qualitative data analysis packages like the ethnograph, then Vivo, the NUDIST, the Atlas, etc. So nowadays computers can certainly calculate, compare, search, retrieve, sort and organize data more efficiently and more accurately than you can. Then we move on to critical reading of an article. What does it entail when we say critical read an article? Critical reading is a form of language analysis that does not take the given text at face value. So you don't just look and say this is what the text says. One has to go deeper, examine the claims in the text, and then look at the supporting points and possible counter-arguments. So what does critical engagement entail? So we have critical reading, then we have critical engagement. So what does critical engagement entail? You should be able to differentiate between the two. Although they are similar, when you are asked to explain what critical reading entails, you should be able to say this is critical reading, while this one is critical engagement. Critical engagement, you are getting now engaged, you are getting involved with whatever that you are reading. So it entails giving a clear exposition of the argument. You give now the clear exposition of the argument. It entails determining and assessing the support for a certain claim you or others have made in order to get a clear understanding of an issue. It entails determining the truth of the premises. It entails clarifying and analyzing the language used. It demands informed thinking and creativity. So all these are what critical engagement entails. Then steps required in critical evaluation of an article. Now, how do you go about evaluating an article? Firstly, you analyze and interpret what the author is saying and doing. So you read through, you take a pen or a laptop, then you try to analyze and interpret what exactly is the author saying. Then we evaluate the author's claims, arguments, and approach. Then you relate these to other literature. What other researchers are saying about this? Or what is your own, for instance, if you are writing your own piece of writing, what is your piece of writing saying about what this other author has said? Number 7, plagiarism. What does plagiarism entails? Plagiarism is copying the work of another person without proper acknowledgement. So you are copying and there is absence of proper acknowledgement. As a result, it gives an impression to an ordinary reader that the work is the original work of the author, when in fact it was copied from some other's work. Plagiarism is regarded a serious offense in the academic world. It constitutes academic theft. The offender has stolen the work of others and presented the stolen work as it was his or her own. It's a serious offense. One might even face expulsion if you plagiarize other people's work. Research ethics. So you don't just go in the field and conduct your research. You have to observe the research ethics. Number 1, you need to obtain informed consent from the potential research participants. So after you have identified your prospective research participants, you need to talk to them about your study and ask them to give their consent. If it's children, then if they are people under the age of 16, then you need to get consent from their parents or from the guardians. You need to minimize the risk of harm to participants. You should not expose them to danger. You need to protect their anonymity and confidentiality. Let's say you are asking someone about specific information about their institution. So when you are reporting, you will not say Paulus James said. You have to put some names there that you can use, or some type of numbers that you can use so that you can protect their confidentiality. You have to avoid using deceptive practices. You cannot tell them that, no, this study is about this, whereas the intentional reason for the research is something else. You need to give participants the right to withdraw from your research. You find that sometimes the participant will agree to take part in your research, and in the middle of the research, they might find certain topics or certain things uncomfortable with them, and they want to withdraw. You should give them the right to do so. Number 19, students should be able to calculate the mean, mode, and median. For instance, here I try to give you an example. It says, find the mean, median, and mode of the following list of values. So we have 13, 18, 13, 14, 13, 16, 14, 21, and 13. Now to find the mean, you need to add all these numbers together. So if you add all these numbers together, they will give you 135. That is the total sum. Now from that total sum, you need now to calculate the total. From the total sum, you need to divide that total sum with the total number of scores that you added together. No, not with the total number of scores, but the total numbers that you have of scores. The total number you have there are 9 numbers. So the total sum is 135, then you have to divide it with the total numbers that you have, which is 9, and then you get your mean, which is 15. I want you to do this on your own. Also practice it and try to get it. To find the median is the middle value, so you need to rewrite the list in ascending order. That's from the lowest to the highest. You can also decide to put them from the highest to the oldest, as long as the numbers are in order. So the middle number or the middle value is what we call a median. There are times when you have 2 numbers in the middle. For instance, you have numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Those are 10 numbers. Those are 10 numbers. Now, if you are to find a median for that for those numbers, you look at the middle numbers there are 5 and 6. So you need to add now those 5 and 6 together, then they will give you 11. If they give you 11, then you divide the 11 with the total number of scores. The numbers of scores that you have there are 2. Then you get a 5.5. So the median, to find the median, it all depends on whether you have 1 number or you have 2 numbers. You should be able to do both. Please take time and practice on that. And to find the mode, the mode is a number that is repeated more often than any other number. So if you look at the set of numbers that you have there, you find that you only have 121. If you look at 16, it only appears once also. If you look at 18, it only appears once. If you look at 14, it appears twice. If you look at 13, it appears 1, 2, 3, 4. It appears 4 times, therefore the mode is 13. Please practice how to calculate the mean, the mode, and the median. Number 20, Maree provides us with the components of the research proposal. A research proposal, it's a plan. It's a plan of what your research is all about. It's not a final research. So we have a research that you do after you have conducted, or after you have after you have gone into the field. Then what you will have, then you will report back what you find in the field. That is a research. But a proposal is just a plan for what you are going to do. Now, in your proposal, you need to have orientation to research. That's when I will locate the research. You need to have a rationale why you are doing the research that you are doing. A statement of purpose or research problem. What are the problems? Significance of the study. Why is the study important? Definition of key concepts that will be used in your research. Literature review, research design and methodology, research ethics, chapter planning, time frame and references. That is a plan. So if you look in that plan, there is no discussions, there is no findings, because we haven't gone into the field to get the findings yet. This is just a research proposal of what you'll be doing. And that has brought us to the end of the presentation. This is just a guide for you for the April and August examination. Go through the presentation carefully, but you will do it in conjunction with your study guide. So this presentation doesn't go deep with what is in your book. So you need to get your study guide, you need to go through your study guide so you can get the depth of what I just presented. With that, I wish you all the best for the upcoming examination. If you have problems or you are experiencing problems, or there is a specific unit that you don't fully understand, please feel free to contact me. I'm available mostly from 17 hours up to 19 hours. You can call and we can see how we can help you. Or you can send me an email, then I will be able to respond to you on your question. With all that, good luck with your examination. Please take proper care of yourself, protect yourself from COVID, wear your mask, and wash your hands as often as you can. Goodbye.